Today I'm going to be showing you how I press some of my wet or squishy eyeshadows to make them more usable. I have mentioned this in a few videos where some palettes have some squishier formulas and I have hooded oily lids, and that causes a lot of issues with me no matter the eyeshadow primer. So I take a tissue and I press the shadow and try to get as much as whatever the binder is that is causing it to be that emollient and squishy. And I don't want to say oil because I don't think that these are literally mixed with an oil, but it's just whatever the binder is in these to make them be this formula in the eyeshadow pans. I try to really squeeze out. I am not the only person that does this. I know there's a bunch of other creators, non-creators who do this. Now, disclaimer, this does not completely work on every eyeshadow. There are going to be some eyeshadows that are just still going to retain the emolliency and they still might crease on you. The intention here is to really try to minimize the amount of creasing and how fast they crease. So just trying to set expectations. There's some shadows that even if I really press them, they will still crease on me. There is a couple of different formulas of levels of squishy or more emollient types of shadows. Here today I have some from Ensley. These two are from the Secret Garden from Bella Beaute bar, which I mentioned in my video with squishy that I haven't pressed yet. So while these are definitely squishy and emollient, they are not quite like paste like some of the shades from Ensley, and I'm going to show you. So these two I already pressed way before I planned on even filming this video, and I will show you kind of like a before and then I'm going to show you an after on just how much I was able to press out of it. There are two different ways to press. The first one is if the shadow is just a little bit squishy, and then the second way I use is when the shadow is literally like paste and it's just something that I would absolutely not be able to use on my lids. So I'm going to insert that footage here of these two shades before I press them. So for both of these, I used method number 2, which was literally taking these out of the pan and pressing them in between a tissue, which I will show you. So this is the shade Daisy. You might have seen this shade was literally like sticky, pasty, just weird. So now it doesn't stick. So it's not sticky. It still feels a little bit more like super finely, kind of not emollient, but it feels just maybe a tad creamy, and I think this one will still crease on me, but it did not lose any of its shine. It didn't change the formula per se, it just made it more usable. It feels a little bit more drier. So I'm going to show you what I mean. It still moves a tiny bit in the pan. I could probably go back and repress this one again, but I feel like it's kind of like good enough. And then the next shade that you saw is Jade, and this one was literally squishy. So this one I still feel like it's a little bit squishy, but it's not sticking to my finger. And this one still moves around a little bit. I feel like this one, if anything, feels a little bit more emollient than that one. But this one also, the particle size in here is different. So these are more like pressed flakes. So these are always going to press a little bit, like they're going to feel a little bit softer in the pan because they are flakes that you're kind of pushing down. So that's what that shade looks like. Again, still really shiny, very metallic, very smooth. So let me show you. It is, I feel like I can feel it moving just a little bit, but you can't really see it too much. I think I could just go back with this one a little bit more again if I wanted to, and I might, but not in this video. I'm going to be showing you some from scratch. So let's get into the things you'll need. You'll definitely need tissues. The kind of tissue is totally up to you. I have tried paper towels. I don't really like paper towels. I don't feel like they soak as well as a tissue paper. They're almost a little too thick, and I feel like the fibers in there are a little bit too thick. So I just think that a thinner tissue paper definitely soaks them up a bit better. Some sort of a tool. I actually have a different one that I like to use. I prefer over this one, but I can't find it right now. And then for the pressing, I prefer to just use my fingers and just like really press down. I don't care if the pan looks different. So I don't have pressing towels for all those different shapes of eyeshadow, so you can use a pressing tile. This one I got from TKB Trading a long time ago. If you have 26mm round pans, you can also just get a pressing tile without the little doorknob on top. You can also use an empty eyeshadow pan, but I don't think this one's going to really necessarily fit perfectly downwards. And then you could also use a magnet, but I really want to show this to you bare bones so you don't feel like you need to buy anything, because you don't. You really just need tissue paper and something to scrape the eyeshadow out with, and of course make sure that the area is clean clean, I did sanitize this with alcohol. My hands are washed. I'm using clean tissues. So the first way I'm going to show you is the simplest way, the easiest way, the quickest way, and that is literally just taking a tissue, putting it on top, and just smushing down the eyeshadow in the pan. You can start to see it picking up quite a bit of the pigment. It does take up a little bit of the particles, so that's how much oil I was able to press out. This one, I don't know if I could technically, if I really wanted to go in, I could do the second method, but I'm just gonna stick to this one. I did it on some of the other shades this way, and it seemed to suffice, but I will show you. So you just keep pressing and pressing and pressing until you see less and less on your tissue. Some, you know, that can vary on the amount of tissues you'll use, but I'm just really pressing down and trying to keep my fingers really inside of the pan. And you just keep going around and around on the tissue paper. And I think you can already start to see it's starting to be less and less. And you really want to push down like a lot. Got a good one there. So still a lot coming out of there. Of course, ideally, I wouldn't have to do this. I'm just not really particularly a huge fan of having these super emollient shadows. Of course, it doesn't crease on everyone, but I think that I've seen so many people have issues with it. There are some softer, a little bit more emollient formulas that don't really crease on me, so it's just like, it really depends. I'm just gonna keep pushing, pushing, pushing. Really pushing down is when you're like really still getting stuff out. So you can start to see from like the first one I did to this one now. So that's already better. So I'm just gonna go a little bit more. And that's getting better. Look at this beautiful pink pattern we've got. Except my desk is getting a little bit dirty now. There we go. Really pushing down, so that's getting there. Just gonna fast forward this part. Okay, I feel like that's pretty good, so let's do a little swatch. Still feels really nice and creamy. It's still super, super shiny, but it doesn't squish down in the pan. It definitely feels drier. And be prepared, this is going to be messy, so you can totally put on gloves if you would like, but I can usually just wash any sort of staining off my fingers with some soap. Next up is Mason. This one is one of the new shadows from Odin's Eye, and this one literally is sticky, so it's like picking up just a little bit, and this is what it looks like. It kind of picks up patchy, which is very common with these kinds of super, super sticky shades. So here's just like a swatch of that. I mean, it looks really nice and shiny and beautiful. However, not ideal. So what I do with these kinds of shadows is I will take them out of the pan. Just like that, as much as I can possibly get. So you do want something pretty sharp to really get in the corners. This is just like some random like palette knife from Amazon. When I was playing around with some polymer clay, I got like a set. But there's other, you can just really use whatever you want. So you can see, can you see how this is like, it looks like literally cream when I press it down. So I'm gonna, and it's sticking to the back of the palette knife, so I'm gonna smooth this down into the tissue and try to use as much, like I don't want to waste the eyeshadow, but honestly the amount of eyeshadow you're going to waste is way smaller than you potentially not being able to use the eyeshadow at all. So from here, I just want to really press down, and you're gonna repeat this process probably at least 5 times. So you can see it's starting to come through. This is for the real squishy. Like I need to get into the layers of the eyeshadow in order for me to really be trying to get the oil out. It's still quite squishy. It literally spreads like basically like paste. So I'm just gonna keep pushing down, pushing down. This one's probably gonna take a bit, kind of like the other two that I've already shown you. Those took a bit of pushing. You could also put something down and then push that down if you wanted to. Again, I like to get in there and just really just press with my fingers. I just feel like that's, for me, what I found most effective. But you can kind of trial and error this and figure out. So I moved it onto a new tissue. I'm really gonna try to spread it out. And then layer. And then just really push down your palm. You can use your fingers. It's a little bit of a workout. You can really see it coming through here, so definitely got a bit of way to go. And then it kind of stays in like a layer. So I just try to keep it like that if possible. And it's definitely starting to be a little bit less squishy now. I can feel that I'm getting a little bit of a, I can feel it just not moving and slipping as much. I think I'm gonna need one more tissue. You're basically trying to do this until there's the least amount of staining on the tissue paper. So it kind of looks like little flakes of eyeshadow. And then I'm just gonna grab these little ones and just go in. The thinner you get it, the thinner the layer that you have to press, and the better. See, I still had a bit here. It kind of looks like an ink blot. And the other reason I like using my hands, I feel like I can like strategically push it in certain areas more and just really get it mushed down. So it's already getting a lot better. And also the way it picks up like it's drier. So that's a good sign. I think I'm just gonna do one more and then we'll put it back in the pan. Okay, see how much less was this time? So I'm gonna start putting it back in the pan. A little bit more. Oops. But you can see like now it's just like a solid thin piece versus a paste. So now you have it in the pan. So I'm gonna just break it up a little bit with this tool in the pan, because now I'm gonna press it down back in there. I'm just gonna use this tissue, just this side, and I'm just gonna press it down. And in turn, I'm also going to probably get even more oil out of it. And here's what that looks like in the pan now. So now if I go like this, it's not sticky. It's moving because I'm tapping into it, but there's no stickiness. When I pick it up, it picks up evenly, not patchy, because it's not weirdly sticky. And here's what that looks like. This is when it was sticky. This is now. So no change. The other shade I want to show you is something like this one where it's not flakes. So these two are kind of flaky. But then this one, and you can kind of already see it in the pan, the texture is a bit different. This one is really, really smooth pigment, but it's extremely squishy and sticky. So this shade, Freya, was also sticky. It's literally picking up on my finger. You can see I can mush it around. It literally looks like paste, picks up like paste, but I'm gonna clean my desk and then we'll get into this one. So I cleaned off my desk. I have 3 more tissues. We're gonna swatch this one, so I'm just gonna tap into it. So here's what that looks like. I'm gonna swatch it right here. It literally feels like I'm spreading paste. I mean, it looks beautiful, but again, it's not going to wear on my lids. Absolutely no way, shape, or form. So I'm just gonna put the tissue down and we're gonna do the same thing. This shade is definitely way too squishy for me to just try to squeeze out the top layer. And I mean, look at how it's coming out. It's coming out like literally in one piece. Because that's how squishy it is. It's like a cream shadow, except most cream shadows come in pots because they will dry down. The thing is with these, they will not dry down. They will just remain sticky and very, very oily. So I'm just trying to take out as much as possible. And again, you'll notice how it's spreading like paste. So I'm going to try to, again, flatten it out. It's like sticking to the little spatula. So I'm just trying to keep it actually on just this side. I think that's pretty good. It's really like sticking to the spatula here. And then we're just gonna do everything all over again. I'm gonna fast forward this part. Unfortunately, you won't see anything coming off since it is an iridescent. But you're just gonna keep doing it. You have to go by touch and visually what it looks like. So you could see how I literally had to just peel that off. So we're gonna try to do kind of probably, and that's, oh my god, that looks so funny. Still way too squishy. I can feel it really like moving. Like when I go like this, it slides and it's actually ripping through the paper because that's how wet this shadow is. Okay, so I'm gonna move it over to this side now. And then really try to spread it as I'm pushing down. Again, you can use your wrist. And we're gonna move on to the next tissue, and I'm just gonna fast forward this. So this is the fourth tissue, and I can still tell that it's still gonna be relatively creamy. And this is that kind of formula that no matter how much I will try to squeeze out of it, it's still going to remain emollient because it is just so, because you just saw how squishy and sticky it was. So unfortunately, this is gonna be one of those shades that I can't use in my crease. Even after pressing, it's gonna be better for sure. It's not going to crease as quickly, but it will still most likely crease on me. So I'm just gonna use this side, just put it back in the pan, and I'm just gonna squish down until it is evenly throughout in the pan. There we go. So it's still gonna feel a little bit paste-like, but in like a more solid way. Like I can still feel it moving around in the pan now as I'm pressing down, which similarly to this shade, it's one of those things where I can only do so much. And it's definitely harder on this kind of shade since I can't see anything coming out. But here you have it. Here's the pan. Is it still moving around? A little bit, but it's not as bad. And it does definitely feel drier to the touch. So here it is. Here to swatch next to this is the swatch before pressing the oil out. So as I mentioned, it is not a complete 100% guaranteed solution to these, but if you have purchased something and it was just a little bit more oily or maybe like really squishy and sticky and you don't want it to go to waste, this is a way to definitely alleviate some of the issues you might be running into. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.